everybody, and welcome to Reed's Spider-Man Crawl Space Editions. Check us out at SpidermanCrawlspace.com. Well, I'm back here to review, of course, McKay's two stellar issues of Spider-Man, including the one-shot Black Cat and Mary Jane Beyond, and of course, Amazing 87, aka 888. That's a lot of eights. So, what did these two issues do, and what do they have to do with the storylines for Peter Parker getting back in action and the fate of Ben Reilly right now with his current issues and the upcoming Goblin Queen? Let's find out with the pros. First of all, let's get right into Black Cat and Mary Jane. I really like how the story is set up because really having Parker Robbins, the Hood, being part of the identity was actually a pretty amazing little piece here. It also does a little part because some people did ask in other reviews about exactly how Parker didn't put together the different pieces about Peter Parker. I know it's a lot of Parkers too if you think about that. Not figuring out that he's Spider-Man, but knowing that he has a very special relationship with Felicia Hardy. But of course that also goes back to the original Mind Wipe storyline from Doctor Strange. But I really like how the setup is in here that he just wants to get his Hood back from the demonic areas, which of course is under a piece of Tombstone, who as we know is going to be becoming a much more larger villain in the Spider-Man and Marvel universe right now. So I really like the storyline, actually how Mary Jane ends up getting caught in this, that Black Cat actually uses her to keep her not only protected, but I also like how the two of them actually work together to, of course, get the piece and outsmart the various bad guys to get the Hood's demonic bag back. And I really love the storyline, especially towards the end here, where, of course, Mary Jane and Black Cat actually pull a fast one on Tombstone to get the Hood, and also the conclusion about how they actually get it to Robbins and what happens to him at the very end. I really like this storyline. I've always liked the Hood as the concept, the original piece with Brian K. Vaughan did with the character, and he's come a long way. Hard to believe in the last 20 years the character's been around, from basically the kingpin of supervillains to demonic emissary to being who he was, from a guy who kind of started with humble beginnings that became a very art thing, as they say, a dark Peter Parker, which is also a joke on his names. It's really interesting, especially the ending when the demonic bag actually eats Robbins is actually a really cool little satisfying conclusion. But I think the biggest heart of this issue is really the talk between Felicia and Mary Jane. Them talking about how they've always been thinking of Peter, about how they've been comparing to each other. I really love how Felicia even admits that Peter was the very first man she ever truly loved, given her backstory and all the continuity that's happened with her over the years, as well as Mary Jane saying to herself how she was always the bad girl, not really the wholesome, hot, attractive woman that she's been considered for a lot of pieces, and even then bringing up the whole little elephant in the room with Gwen Stacy and how she was the main hero and, as they say, living up to a dead woman. It's well done by McKay. He does a really nice piece on it. The artwork by Villa is also very strong in this issue. It's amazing how good it is. The only cons, like I said about a little bit, with Robin's not, using them to figure out about, that Peter is actually Spider-Man in some of the areas too, but also the fact that Robbins would think of using the Black Cat to get into his suit. There are plenty of other people he could actually use from his previous days as the Hood instead of Felicia. So while it's a little bit of story contrivance about how to make the plot actually work, the conclusion and everything that happens, especially the characterization between Mary Jane and Felicia Hardy, is so well done in this issue that I have to give it a solid A+, guys. This is a good storyline. If you haven't picked it up, you really should, because it is fantastic storyline. It's so driven by character more than the plot, and it's just really nice stuff. Even the MacGuffin storyline that kicks this all off is well done. I even like the ending when Peter wakes up and sees Felicia and Mary Jane over his bed as not only a joke about him dreaming, but also kind of a nod to Mark Millar's Spider-Man series. So it's well done. So A+. Now let's get on over to the main book series with Amazing 87, 888, as I like to do it, or as I say, 8 cubed. Well, actually, no, 8 cubed would actually leave 8 times 8 times 8, which would like, well, okay, this is not a math problem. All right, let's get into the pros of this actual issue, too. What I really like about this is this issue kind of works very well in kind of the aftermath, and we kind of find out exactly everything that's happened to Ben as a result, how his memories are going through. But we're seeing a lot of characterizations that them mind-wiping him and doing everything really has messed up with his thought process about how Ben is really not quite who he is. He's basically what Beyond wants him to be. He wants to be this perfectly, as they say, atomized superhero for their blend in their pieces, but at the same time, they also know they've got issues going on, as the main piece that Otto Octavius took is very dangerous to him, and the fact that Maxine Danger now, for the first time in a long time, is actually being worried about what's going to happen to her on that part of the plot line. But really the focus is, of course, of the storyline is, of course, Captain America and Black Cat putting Peter through the pieces. So another huge pro is this actually focuses hugely hugely on Peter Parker. I really like the fact we've seen how he's a little rusty and everything that's been making sense, but how he's really got to get himself up. And I really love the characterization of McKay descends between Steve Rogers and Peter Parker, especially when Steven says, hey, I know you're kind of tired of hearing all my war stories, and the war was now this many years ago, but you know what? Here's the reasons why it matters. And he just gets the characterization perfectly with that part of the storyline, and just really does such a focus not only that, but also Peter's relationship with Felicia and the fact they're really trained working. It reminds me of the reason why they were actually good partners, not the romantic area of Peter and Felicia's relationship, but why they worked so well in partners. And to see that opposite feel, where back then Peter was trying to have, Felicia becoming much more straighter and narrow as a hero from a thief and criminal, but to see her actually reminding Peter why he is, and also how Peter started re-accepting himself as Spider-Man is well done. Plus the jokes with the Amazing Bagman and a couple other pieces are just really, really hilarious. And I mean, it does really well. So that way, when we do have the Beyond pieces, it just works very, very well on pieces. And speaking of the Beyond part, believe it or not, that's the only weak point I had, even though I've talked about Maxine Danger of Ben Reilly. There is, of course, the cons with this, of course, as we find out what happens to Ashley Kafka with them actually revealing that now that she's been revealed, and Maxine basically calling how she's basically no use to them anymore, and she's confined to use of them, and having the sins of Norman Osborn to turn her into the Goblin Queen, which we all knew was going to happen, is a very interesting twist. But at the same time is the fact that somebody like Beyond is able to get the sins of Norman Osborn after everything happened, which really brings up the question, then how do they were able to get that, considering everything with the Stacy twins and the Harry Osborn AI were able to use the mystical aspects to, take away the sins of Norman Osborn through Sin Eater. And why we know for several times that Beyond has the ability to use both mystical, alien, and other dimensional technology for things. It's kind of a weird little piece to have the sins of the Green Goblin ready to go to infect Ashley to become the Goblin Queen. And basically they're going to use that not only to put her in good use, but also to get Ben back on the piece. So that's really the hard part is, but the fact that these two main issues work so well with Peter's character while still actually explaining why the Beyond is still an important subplot works really well. So issue 888 actually gets an A+ as well from me. It is well done as a Peter Parker while actually explaining pieces with Ben Reilly and the Beyond Corporation in the background, as they basically feels like this is all leading to a conclusion in the next couple months, and even explain some of the things coming up with both the Goblin Queen and even the Stinger, I should say the Slingers, not the Stingers, Slingers thing. I've had a really long week, folks. I apologize to it, but that's why you come back, because you think it's all fun. Yeah, you guys are probably hitting the pause button and the unsubscribe button. So guys, well done on both issues. McKay, Gomez, and Villa do a fantastic job with the art too. These are hand down probably some of the best issues that, believe it or not, focus on the life of Peter Parker, both the Peter as retraining for Spider-Man and the loves of Peter Parker's life. Well done with these storylines. So they both get A+ with very few cons. And you know what, guys? I think I am done for this week. I have, actually, it's the new week. What am I saying? But I think for more information, please check us out the SpidermanCrawlspace.com for more information on Spider-Man. Fantastic reviews from my fellow Crawl Spacers and reviewers. And, of course, our amazing podcast and discussion on Discord. And on that note, guys, I'm going to call it a day. I will hopefully be back next weekend with more reviews here as we continue inching our way to the conclusion of Spider-Man Beyond. And for more information, guys, I'll see you out there on the Crawl Space.